Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a dramatic and rapidly escalating situation that has pulled Belarus and Russia into a moment of intense geopolitical tension. What was once seen as an unbreakable alliance is now being tested by desperation, economic pressure, and the unfolding energy crisis gripping Moscow. Russia, long viewed as the dominant partner in this relationship, is now turning to Belarus for something it critically needs to stabilize its own cities: gasoline. This unexpected shift has placed Belarus on the brink of chaos, caught between internal instability and intense pressure from its most powerful neighbor. In this video, we'll explore how this crisis began, why Russia is suddenly begging for fuel, what it means for Belarus's fragile political landscape, and how this could reshape the balance of power. In Eastern Europe, Belarus has always been in a delicate position. For decades, its economy has relied heavily on Russia, from discounted oil supplies to military support. But behind this dependency, Belarus has also struggled with its own political divides, economic decline, and public dissatisfaction. The country has faced massive protests, sanctions, and the loss of international legitimacy. All of these pressures have created a fragile environment where even the smallest disturbance could ignite unrest. Now, with Russia's energy crisis intensifying, Belarus finds itself under new pressure that could push it past the breaking point. Moscow is not just asking politely. It is pleading, demanding, and pressuring Belarus to pump out gasoline at levels the country's infrastructure was never prepared to handle. Russia's fuel shortages have been building for months. Sanctions, declining oil refinery capacity, logistical failures, and the strain of prolonged conflict have all combined to choke Moscow's energy system. Fuel prices have surged, supplies have thinned, and Moscow's ability to maintain stability is under threat. For a government that relies on keeping major cities functioning smoothly, running out of gasoline is not an option. A shutdown of transportation, power generators, and military logistics would be catastrophic. Desperation has pushed Russia into a corner, and Belarus is the nearest escape route. But Belarus is not in a position to provide unlimited support. Its own refineries are outdated, stretched, and struggling under years of limited investment. The country already faces domestic shortages, rising prices, and growing public anger. Sending more gasoline to Russia means taking it away from Belarusian citizens, and that risk alone could spark new waves of protests. The government knows this, but it also knows that refusing Russia could bring consequences far worse than public anger. Belarus depends on Russia for financial aid, security guarantees, and political survival. In many ways, its leadership has no choice but to comply, even as it risks internal collapse. This tug-of war between self-preservation and external pressure has created a dangerous environment. Belarus is being squeezed from both sides. Ordinary citizens feel abandoned, struggling with rising costs and dwindling supplies. Opposition groups see this crisis as another sign of government failure, fueling their calls for change. And the government finds itself trapped, trying to maintain control while handing over resources it desperately needs. This volatile mix has brought the country to a moment where one wrong move could ignite widespread unrest. As Belarus increases gasoline shipments to Russia, the situation in Moscow reveals just how severe the crisis has become. Long lines at gas stations, rising panic, and reports of rationing paint a picture of a country in deep trouble. Russia's leadership knows that running out of gasoline in Moscow would create a political nightmare. Major cities are the heart of public opinion, government power, and economic activity. Keeping the capital calm is a strategic priority. That's why Belarus has become so important, not because it has abundant resources, but because it is Moscow's last reliable lifeline. This growing dependence has shifted the dynamic between the two countries. Russia has always been the dominant force, using economic leverage and political influence to control Belarusian decisions. But now, for the first time in decades, Russia is forced to humble itself, approaching Belarus not as a superior, but as a supplicant. This unusual reversal has created uncertainty and tension. Belarusian leaders may feel empowered by Russia's weakness, but they also understand the risks of appearing too independent. Russia does not tolerate defiance, especially in moments of vulnerability. As Russia begs for more fuel, Belarus finds itself walking a dangerous tightrope. Provide too much, and the country risks domestic collapse. Provide too little, and it risks Russian retaliation. Every shipment that leaves Belarusian refineries deepens public frustration. People see shelves emptying, prices rising, and the government prioritizing Russia's needs over its own citizens' survival. This frustration is fertile ground for opposition movements, which have been waiting for an opportunity to regain momentum after years of repression. The energy crisis is also exposing cracks in Belarus's internal political structure. Government officials, military figures, and security leaders are quietly debating how far they should go to satisfy Russia. Some believe that total support is the only way to avoid Russian interference. Others fear that sacrificing domestic stability could bring the government down. The absence of unity within the system increases the risk of panic, defection, or sudden shifts in loyalty. These internal fractures make the situation even more unpredictable. Meanwhile, neighboring countries are watching closely. Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine, and the wider European Union are all monitoring the crisis, aware that instability in Belarus could spill across borders. For them, Belarus is not just a neighbor. It is a buffer zone that keeps Russian influence at a distance. If Belarus collapses or falls deeper under Russian control, regional security could be threatened. This raises the possibility of external actors getting involved, not directly, but through sanctions, support for opposition groups, or international pressure. The crisis has also revived old questions about Belarus's future. People are asking whether continued dependence on Russia is sustainable. They are questioning whether the country should seek new economic partnerships, modernize its energy sector, or even reconsider its political alignment. While such changes are unlikely under the current leadership, the growing instability could force unexpected shifts. When people lose access to basic necessities like gasoline, they become more willing to challenge the status quo. Russia's requests for gasoline have become increasingly urgent. Reports suggest that officials are calling Belarusian leaders daily, pushing for faster deliveries and larger quantities. This level of desperation signals how deep Russia's energy crisis truly is. The country that once supplied fuel to half of Eastern Europe is now struggling to fuel itself. The symbolism of this reversal is powerful. It highlights the economic strain of ongoing geopolitical conflicts and the limitations of Russia's once seemingly invincible energy sector. As Belarus sends more gasoline to Russia, the international community is beginning to take notice. Analysts, journalists, and policymakers are questioning how long Belarus can maintain this level of support without imploding. Some predict that Belarus could become the next major flashpoint in Eastern Europe, potentially facing mass protests, government instability, or a political crisis that forces leadership changes. Others warn that Russia may use the chaos as an excuse to deepen its military presence in Belarus, taking control of key infrastructure under the guise of stabilization. What makes the situation even more alarming is that Belarus is not prepared for a long-term crisis. Its economy is shrinking, its currency is weakening, and its political institutions remain deeply fragile. A prolonged fuel shortage would not only damage public trust, but also disrupt transportation, agriculture, and essential industries. This could rapidly escalate into a humanitarian crisis if not managed carefully. The government's limited resources and over-reliance on Russia mean it cannot handle such a crisis alone. The energy crisis is also reshaping public opinion within Belarus. Citizens who once tolerated the government's close relationship with Russia now question whether the alliance is worth the sacrifice. They see Russia draining their resources while offering little in return. This shift in sentiment could lead to new movements calling for greater independence or neutrality. Even if these movements are suppressed, the change in mindset could influence future generations and gradually alter the country's identity. Russia's desperation for gasoline also reveals deeper economic problems that have been hidden from the public. Years of sanctions, declining oil production, and infrastructure decay have taken a toll. The country's leadership has downplayed these issues to maintain an image of strength. But the fact that it must rely on Belarus, one of Europe's smallest and most fragile economies, shows just how vulnerable Russia has become. This vulnerability could encourage other countries to challenge Russia's influence, creating new geopolitical tensions. The crisis further complicates Russia's military activities. Fuel shortages impact troop movement, supply lines, and the ability to sustain conflict. Belarus's gasoline shipments may temporarily patch these problems, but they cannot solve them entirely. If Russia's military capabilities become constrained, the broader balance of power in Eastern Europe could shift. Countries that once feared Russia's military dominance may now see an opportunity to strengthen their own defenses and reduce their dependence on Russian energy. All of these developments place Belarus in an increasingly unstable position. The country is being pulled into a crisis it cannot control, forced to support a neighbor whose needs grow larger by the day. The political, economic, and social consequences of this pressure are building. The government must navigate a complex web of alliances, threats, and internal unrest. Every decision it makes will shape the future of the country and determine whether Belarus stabilizes or collapses further into chaos. Despite the rising tension, Belarus has little room to maneuver. It cannot fully break from Russia without risking immediate retaliation. Yet it cannot continue sacrificing its own stability indefinitely. This impossible situation defines the current crisis. It is a struggle for survival in a region already strained by years of conflict, sanctions, and political turmoil. The next few months may be decisive in determining whether Belarus emerges from this crisis intact or faces a dramatic breakdown. As Russia continues to beg Belarus for gasoline to save Moscow, the world watches closely. This crisis is not just about fuel. It is a reflection of shifting power, economic fragility, and the high cost of geopolitical conflict. Belarus stands at a crossroads, caught between loyalty to Russia and the need to protect its own future. Whether it collapses under pressure or finds a way to navigate this storm will shape the future of Eastern Europe for years to come.